Hey kitties, how's it going? As you can see, I'm on safari this week, deep in the jungles of Skull Island. And I got something real special for you. Something bigger than all the movies in the world. Something... Oh boy. Well, I did it, kiddies. It was a long, tough journey, but I'm finally back in the dungeon. And I got us a movie. Not just any movie either, but the granddaddy of all giant monster flicks. This is King Kong, the original version from 1933. Now, I kind of want to do something different today. I don't want to just review a movie, because the fact of the matter is, without this, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you right now. When I was 5 years old, my parents took me out to dinner at a pizzeria. We sat in a booth across from the bar, and up on the wall, I saw a poster. A poster for a movie. Amidst a sea of flames, a giant beast from the dawn of time pushed open gates before a crowd of fleeing people. It was so savage and so primal, it instantly captured my imagination. After a little bit of help from my dad sounding out the title, as well as the name of the leading lady, we took a trip to the video store, and we tracked down a movie. Well, it wasn't this one. It was the 1976 remake. But I was determined to try out some King Kong. I remember it like it was yesterday.
I remember sitting through the first hour bored out of my skull, the talking parts doing nothing to interest me. What was this? The 1970s energy crisis? I didn't care about any of this. Still, I stuck with it.
What was that?
Then it happened. The flames burned, the gate opened, and within moments, my life was transformed. Today, it's obvious he's just an actor in a suit, and although I wasn't overly impressed by the movie, Kong himself had left an impression on me. Bigger than life and unlike anything I had ever seen before, I knew I had to have more.
And have more, I did, kiddies, for on a subsequent trip to the video store, I found this exact same VHS tape. I found it in the classics section, and I remember my dad explaining to me that this meant it was the original, or the first, and that it would be in black and white. It was kind of funny. I thought that the world used to be in black and white, and then eventually they invented color, that it had nothing to do with film. Well, I took this videotape home, threw it in the VCR, and you can imagine what I saw.
Needless to say, King Kong kicked my ass. It opens in New York, where filmmaker Carl Denham is so desperate to find a leading lady for his movie that he sets out to brave the city streets in the midst of the Great Depression.
Where are you going?
I'm going out and get a girl for my picture, even if I have to marry one.
As luck would have it, he discovers the beautiful and innocent Ann Darrow, played by Fay Wray, who accepts his offer without question.
It's money and adventure and fame. It's the thrill of a lifetime and a long sea voyage that starts at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning.
What do I have to do?
Just trust me and keep your chin up.
Traveling by sea to their mysterious shooting location, an island with a mountain in the shape of a skull, Anne falls in love with the ship's first mate, the hard-nosed man's man, Jack Driscoll, played by Bruce Cabot.
Mr. Driscoll, are you on deck? Yes, sir.
Coming ashore on the time-forgotten island, they encounter a tribe of natives in a village which lays beneath the shadow of a towering wall. What does the wall protect the islanders from? Well, I think we can all guess by now.
Did you ever hear of Kong?
The natives sacrifice Anne to their jungle god, leaving Denham and Jack to lead a team of sailors on a rescue mission in the island interior. They think it's going to be easy, and then, holy shit, there's dinosaurs! Real honest-to-God living dinosaurs! Now picture me, 5 years old. In this version, the opening act is over in half the time it was in the 1976 version, and on top of that, they reward me with motherfucking dinosaurs. Yeah, I didn't have a chance. From here, the movie kicks into high gear. If you think old movies are slow, check this out. One scene after another, boom, boom, boom. The sailors fight to survive. Kong battles a T-Rex, shakes people off a log, battles a plesiosaur, a pteranodon, and in the middle of this, Denham goes to get help and Jack turns into an even bigger badass than he already was. Not surprisingly, one of my favorite scenes was the moment that was hinted at on that movie poster. Jack brings Anne back to the village with Kong hot on their heels. But even with the bolt across the gate and the combined strength of all the natives and sailors, the wall which kept the monster out for so long begins to fail. Beast has made up his mind, he will have his beauty. And with that... that right there, that is the stuff I live for. Eventually, Denham halts the rampage with a gas bomb. His movie long abandoned in the chaos, he brings Kong to New York in chains, where he breaks loose, goes on a rampage, and scales the Empire State Building in one of the most iconic finales ever put to film. This movie really left an impression on me as a kid, and I wasn't alone. From Ray Harryhausen to Steven Spielberg and Peter Jackson, almost anyone who has ever told stories with special effects has been touched by this movie. For me, it was the first time I ever became aware that there was someone responsible for the movies I watched. The first half hour before Kong shows up, I was never bored because Carl Denham was such a fun and charismatic character. He sweeps you up the same way he does with Anne. And what's the payoff? He's like an Indiana Jones who gets to make movies on an island full of dinosaurs. What little kid wouldn't be captured by that? It encourages imagination, and although the special effects work of Willis O'Brien may look dated by today's standards, it also encourages audience involvement. I used to spend hours wondering how each shot was made. I eventually discovered this book, and suddenly I wished I could go back in time to be a part of the production, or at the very least, remake it myself. Because it pioneered so many different film techniques in a time when movies were still in their infancy, you can't help but be inspired to want to do the same. And the harsh left turn the story takes from reality into the impossible only heightens this. And by the way, who didn't have a crush on Fay Wray after watching this movie? At 5 years old, she was right up there with Amy Jo Johnson and Yvonne Craig for me.
Well, is that a nice thing to say?
The legacy of Kong is far-reaching. At the time, it was the culmination of several different careers and the unleashing of several different techniques that had slowly been developing since cinema began. Not just special effects, but also sound and music. Eager to beat any rip-offs to the marketplace, RKO released a sequel the same year, Son of Kong. Far more lighthearted and hampered by a lower budget, it fares surprisingly well. As one reviewer once said, it's the perfect dessert after the main course that was the original movie.
Did you ever catch a monkey?
Did I ever? Lady, you'd be surprised.
Kong's creator, Merian C. Cooper, would re-team with much of the original crew for the 1949 guerrilla adventure Mighty Joe Young. O'Brien was back, even winning an Oscar for his work on the film, but most of the technical duties went to his apprentice, Ray Harryhausen, a first-generation fan of the original who went on to revolutionize the special effects industry in his own right. In Japan, Kong had a direct influence on special effects artist Eiji Tsuburaya, whose work on the Godzilla films eventually led to Kong himself invading the land of the rising sun.
Kong versus Godzilla. If we are lucky, both will die.
Kong, you are to obey these orders.
Then there was the Dino De Laurentiis remake, which I already talked about. And despite the bashing it takes from fans, I've actually come to like this movie a lot. The script by Batman's Lorenzo Semple Jr. is clever, the suit effects top-notch, and besides, it stars Jeff freaking Bridges. How can you complain about that?
That's fucking interesting, man. That's fucking interesting.
Also, events of 9/11 notwithstanding, it has one of the most badass monster movie posters of all time. This movie did have its own sequel in the 1980s, but the less said about that, the better. And finally, Peter Jackson retold the original story yet again in a 3-hour epic that took home Academy Awards and praise from critics back in 2005. Even if audience reaction was lukewarm, I absolutely loved this flick. In so many ways, it was the movie I had dreamed of making my entire life. It's also one of the most documented films ever made, so if you have 13 hours to kill, skip film school and throw on the Blu-ray bonus features. You won't be disappointed. Between the new Kong movie and his promised rematch with Godzilla set for 2020, it has never been more clear. The great ape is still the eighth wonder of the world and king of all he surveys. But at the end of the day, there really is only one King Kong, and you should accept no substitutes. Much like the original Frankenstein, it's a movie where even if you haven't seen it, you're probably still familiar with the iconography. All I ask is that you don't let that stop you. If you've never journeyed through the foggy veil of the original Skull Island, I dare you to take the plunge. Who knows? You might even find yourself a little inspired when you come out the other side.
Ladies and gentlemen, Look at Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. I'm going out and get a girl for my picture, even if I have to marry one.